All right. Okay. So now we are live. All right. So hello everybody in the chat. So if there's any moderators in the chat, I know that there might be people who disagree with you. Don't ban them. Don't block them. Let them say their piece. However, if it's a troll who's doing 1488 or anything in triple parentheses or just being a basic jerk, just go ahead and ban them. But if it's somebody who disagrees with you, don't uh, don't ban them. Okay, so I am here with Thomas Dunn of Through the Black. So thank you so much for doing this. I actually contacted you a long time ago when I first came across your channel, and I never heard back from you guys. So I'm glad we actually have an opportunity to sit down and talk about this. And in this particular instance, we're going to be talking about the Hampstead case. And so, do you want to introduce yourself or say
Yeah,
anything?
well, nothing special about me. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about this stuff. Well, it's a little bit more than that. I mean, I made a film about it, and I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker, but I'm a guy who made a film. You know, I would like to be a filmmaker. I made 2 movies now, and this is something that I kind of. I mean, in reference to the Hampstead case. I started out 10 years ago wanting to make a film about it for entertainment purposes. And then as I began to do the research, it got more real to me. So a film that was going to be for entertainment purposes kind of transformed into a different type of a film. So, and then when I was making the film, of course, the Hampstead thing broke loose, and I was actually going to cover that in my film, but I couldn't really find anybody that I could trust on the ground in the UK to it was kind of chaos over there, and I had enough for my film, so I just went ahead and produced it without the Hampstead part, because that's kind of a story of its own.
Okay, and so I've been looking into the Hampstead case, and what brought you to first of all believe that the Hampstead case is factual, meaning that there's evidence for it. What made you come to
Um,
that conclusion?
well, and the way that you asked that question, well, let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll tell you the reason why I believe the Hampstead case. Okay, and, from the moment that I heard the testimonies, I believe I believe the Hampstead case for me personally, because I had experienced so many other testimonies saying the same thing of people that never heard of these kids before. So
Okay.
for me, that was the moment when I saw the kids. When I'm not a professional counselor, I'm not a professional child psychologist or anything like that, but I've been doing this, like I said, I've been doing this a long time. For me, it wouldn't be for a lot of people, but for me, I believed, when I watched several different interviews and I just examined the body language, I examined, what the kids were saying, how they were explaining it. I was convinced when I saw them give their testimony. And
Mm-hmm.
then later
So,
on,
sorry, 1 second, Tom. But I just want to clarify what testimony you're talking about. The nearly 16 video clips of the parents prepping the children before the interview with the police, or are you
the
talking about the interview with the police?
the clips with the parents and the clips with the police.
So you're talking about when the parents were actually prepping the children on how to respond to questions.
Um, Prepping is your word. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say
Okay.
it's, for me. It's not prepping. I don't think it's prepping. I think they're asking them questions, and they're getting information. I mean, if you there's so much more than those videos. Okay, there's so much more to the case. There's so much more backstory, testimony, and for me, when I saw the videos were enough. I was convinced, and then over time, as I learned about the backstory, as I learned about the police reports, as I learned about the judgment, as I learned about the police interviews. Okay, because I didn't see the police interviews right away. And as you learn, there's a medical report that that reports the kids were actually sexually abused. So I forget what your question was, but I'm trying to, yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. When you say backstory, what do you mean by backstory? Because to my knowledge, the backstory is the parents prepping, and I'm going to continue to use that word because that's what they were doing. They were coaching and prepping these children how to respond to questions from the police and what to say to the police. So beyond that, what do you mean by backstory?
Well, okay, so the backstory for me is the other interviews, because the first thing that you see is what pops up. Okay, the first things that went viral were the interviews with the children. Okay, but then for me, when I dug deeper and I heard the testimonies of the mother, and you probably know we interviewed the mother on our show sometime last year,
Mm-hmm.
Ella Draper. But when I heard her testimonies, and I heard her explain that, she didn't know what was going on with her kids for a long time. And she explained
Is
it out
this
of
after February 15th when she refused to come into court and testify for her children?
I'm not familiar with the timeline. It probably is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's
So
been on the run ever since.
she's been on the run for a long time. I mean, she ran. I don't know if
Mhm.
I mean, she went to a place where she's safe. I wouldn't say
Well,
she's on the
perjury
run,
is a
but
pretty severe crime.
so, and again, I don't know what the charges are against her. I don't think she's ever been indicted. Maybe you might know something I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would indict her, because then she could bring a lot of evidence. They would have to have a trial, and I don't think they want a trial.
But
But
they've already had a trial. I mean,
I'm
you're
unaware.
obviously aware of that. You've been studying the case. You know it's already been a lengthy trial. There were over
I'm not familiar with
witnesses.
what you mean about a trial.
What I mean is the trial, the actual trial that took place in the UK.
I know there was a judgment. I know there was testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Well, that's what I meant by trial.
the judgment.
Right.
Okay, yeah. I know that the judge, Justice Mrs. Justice Palfrey, evaluated the evidence and made a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know how many people she interviewed?
I don't know how many people she interviewed. But I mean, I know she. I could probably name a few. I mean, she interviewed the father.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like you know some more facts than I do, but um, I don't know that. I'm assuming she interviewed the doctors that did the medical report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Tell me, how many people did she interview?
Well, she interviewed about 16 people. Definitely one of them was Ricky Dearman, obviously the husband. The parents, excuse me, not the parents, but Ella Draper and her boyfriend at the time, Abraham Christie, I think.
Right.
Abraham Christie, yeah. So when they went to their house to conduct a further interview after, I think it was February 15th, basically the police went to their house.
And they
They
jumped out the
talked,
window. Yeah.
yeah, they jumped out the window and ran. So if you're innocent, I don't understand. And especially if your own child is depending upon you to show up in court to defend them. I mean, and you're a parent and you jump out of a window and run away. I mean, that's a big alarm for me right there.
Well, and I think that's a good argument, and I
Mhm.
can't explain why they did that. I don't know. People have brought that up to me. Matter of fact, people who are strong believers in the children and what happened to them have brought that up to me about, why did she do this? This is not the behavior of a good mother. I can't explain that. I don't know what they thought was going to happen when, I mean, maybe because they were so close to the case, and I'm speculating here, that and I can't say that I know that I've heard her speak to that exact reason. There was some sort of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I for me, I think what I understood, I think the fear was that the people that were coming to interview her were not on her side, so to speak. They were
Well,
not there for her. I mean, they were not there to protect her kids or to protect her.
Well, they were police officers.
Right,
So
right.
there's civil police officers who were conducting an investigation that was instigated by her because
Hmm.
she had made these claims, or her children made these claims, and then she backed up her children. So the police were there to help her essentially, and then she ran away. I mean, it's one of the it's
Well,
a one
yeah,
in a long line of questions that just make me really wonder, like, what's going on? What is the truth? And
no,
I think that's what you're looking for too, isn't it?
it
Are
is
you
what I'm
looking
looking
for the
for.
truth
Yeah,
in this
but
case?
I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. That does not bother me because my feeling about the people that were, that how do I want to word this? I'm thinking of, I don't want to sound so conspiratorial, but I mean, that's the way that I lean, right?
I understand.
So, I mean, if you're familiar with the Marc Dutroux case in Belgium, okay, are you familiar with that case?
Not really, no.
Okay, it took place in the 90s. Basically, a guy by the name of Marc Dutroux went to jail and he got a slap on the wrist for raping teenage girls. Okay, he should have been in prison for the rest of his life. They let him out after 3 years, and then girls started to just a Reader's Digest. Okay, I'm trying to explain why I think that maybe Ella might have been afraid. Okay,
Okay.
So they let him out of prison. He should have went to prison for life, but they let him out of prison after 3 years. They called him the Belgian Beast, but then girls started missing around his neighborhood. Well,
So you're talking about a case that's completely unrelated to what we're
yes, I
talking
am.
about
I
right now?
am. But the reason I'm making this point because um, what happened in Belgium? They called this guy the Belgian Beast, Marc Dutroux. They found, long story short, they found the bodies in his basement of these girls, and they found bodies buried in his yard, okay, all over the place. And he had them in cages, and it was human trafficking, and it was crazy stuff. Now, I don't think there were any allegations of any kind of satanic type stuff, okay? But what did come out was the reason why they just gave this guy a slap on the wrist is because the judge, the police, and law enforcement and politicians were involved, and they let him out to protect himself. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Belgium, and you can look this up, and demanded justice. And everybody,
Okay. I mean,
basically
I'll
everybody was
take
in
your
on
word
it.
for it,
So the
but
reason I'm saying that,
you're really kind of wasting. I mean, you're kind of wasting your time with this because it's unrelated to this case.
well, yeah, but I'm trying to explain why I think she might have been afraid, because it seemed like everybody was in on it, and they weren't there to. There was no way they were going to believe her kid's story,
Okay, so
and I think
so
she
let me
maybe.
Mhm. Sure. Sorry. Let me
No, go
just
ahead.
summarize. Let me just, if I can, just let me
Sure.
summarize your concern here, or what I think is your point of view. So you're saying that she may have ran away from the police because she was afraid that higher ups were involved in this and she wouldn't have gotten a fair trial?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now, if so, for example, let's explore this line of reasoning. So let's say that the police are involved and are aware of it. Okay. So if the police are involved, you're really in big trouble. And if Scotland Yard is included in it too, and then the UK government, and then I mean, if everybody is involved in this, working against one woman in Christchurch, if the entire UK police force, government, and everything is against this woman, I mean, I don't know why. Why would this be so important to them?
Oh, I think it would be. I mean, if they're involved, they here these kids came out with very credible testimony. They named names, they gave details, they gave locations, they told what they did, and I mean, this is an extraordinary testimony. So if all these people are involved and these things are true, why would they not want to shut them down? Why would they not want to go after the mother? The mother is the one going back to the UK and saying, "Hey, these things are going on. I want justice for this."
Then okay, but so when because she indicted Kafka's, right? Okay, which is like essentially the Child Protective Services here in America.
CPS, right?
She also accused the the head teacher of the primary school that her two children went to.
Right.
She also included 7 other schools. She also mentioned a swimming pool. She also mentioned an apartment, or not she, but the children. So there were a lot of people involved in this, and no one, absolutely no one, came forward to support any claims that these children were making. So it was just these 2 kids who were coached by the parents to tell these outrageous claims about what was happening in this school. And to the best of my knowledge, the only evidence is this testimony that the kids, the children, and I'm just going to call them P and Q, P and Q retracted their stories on the 3rd interview of September 17th, 2014. So I'm just wondering, Thomas, what makes you think that this case is credible and that these children did suffer what they claim to have been? Is it just these interviews, or is it the retraction, or I mean, what is it that really makes? I mean, you've invested a lot into this,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm just wondering.
No.
There must be some element of.
Yeah, no, that's a fine question. And I don't think I'm going to be able to give you an answer that satisfies you. The only thing I can say is when the children came out and they gave the testimony, they said things that unless you've experienced these things, you would not know. I've heard them time and time again. Details of their testimony I've heard from people all around the world, some personally, some not firsthand, some secondhand. But because I dove into this almost 10 years ago, and in an interest in making a film, I kind of got sidetracked for a little while, and I became a counselor. I became a lot of different things. And
a licensed counselor?
No, I'm not a licensed counselor,
Okay.
but if I were to be a licensed counselor, then I couldn't deal with the spiritual issues. So, and I haven't. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to think that I've taken any. I have taken courses, and I feel very, anyway. I take
Rust Vizdars.
Yes. I mean, I counsel people on a regular basis, several times a week. And
what are his credentials? Do you know?
I don't know. He's got several degrees. I know he's got a bachelor. I know he's this close from a doctorate.
Does he have counseling credentials?
You know what? I don't know his complete college history, but I know he's been doing it a long time. And in my opinion, he's one of the best of the best. I've seen people. I've been right next to him, and I've seen people come to him in desperation. Since you're asking, okay, I can't give you all the letters and exactly all the courses that he's taken, but I've been to his house. I've seen his library. He's a deep researcher, and he's had much more schooling than I have. But I've seen him get to the heart of a situation where people have been under counseling for years. They come to him in desperation, and he gets right to the heart of the matter in pretty much less than an hour. But I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to give you a lot of answers that are going to satisfy you. The best I can tell you is my experience. That's the reason why I believe the kids. I've heard this. They've said things that, how do these kids know the things that I've heard in private conversations from people that, in a way that they have no ability to network. They have no ability to share these stories. I've heard them over and over and over again. And sometimes when I've been told the stories, I've been the first one, you know what I'm saying, to hear them.
The parents were coaching them. They were coaching the children on what to say.
The thing, and I think people will have to go and look and decide for themselves. Personally, I think when you watch those videos, I think you're very naive to think that those kids could memorize a script and do such a good a job I mean, how did they know to tell them what blood tastes like? How did they know, say, okay, here's what you do? If they asked you, I don't know if they will, but if
they never described that. They didn't know what blood tastes like.
Well, if they ask you what blood tastes like, tell them it tastes like metal. And that's what that's what they said. If they ask you what the inside of your teacher's house looks like, tell them this. And they gave details of what the inside of the teacher's house looked like. If they ask you, and on and on and on, and I think if you watch the testimonies, and if you watch, especially even the police interviews, and even the retraction, the retraction, I think, is a very important piece of evidence. I think a lot of the things that people use as evidence for themselves to say this story is not true, for me, like the judgment, I think when you look at this judgment, when you look at the retraction, something's not right there, especially when this police officer is just not accepting this child's answer.
Well, you and I have a completely different interpretation of this interview. The police officer in question actually did a fantastic job because he did not lead at all. What he did was ask questions, and he told the child exactly what he was expecting. He was expecting the truth.
Mm-hmm.
He told the child, like, if you don't know an answer to it, just tell me you don't know. Other than that, all he did was just listen to the child. And then when the child said stuff, we asked for clarification. There was absolutely no leading.
And he would say
whatsoever.
things like, how do you know that? How do you know that?
Well, yeah, of course. I'm asking you the same thing. I'm like asking you, like, how do you know that?
And
am I leading you?
I just don't think you could coach a child to respond the way that they did. They gave very just innocent, childlike answers. When they were talking about semen, they were explaining, they're like, I don't know what this is. It's just white stuff, And they were explaining, a plastic willy. They don't know what a dildo is. You know what I'm saying? And they were explaining it the best way that they could. So, I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on that personally. I think that when you watch the children's testimony, for me, seeing the children's testimony and with my experience of talking to so many other people, saying very, in some cases, identical things, but very similar things, across the board. To me, I don't think the kids could have talked about this unless they actually experienced them.
Well, yeah, because the parents prepped them for this. They coached them on what to say. Hold on one second. I'm getting to another point here. Hold on one second. I'm getting to another point here. What I'm saying is that these stories that these kids are saying is pretty much like you mentioned. It's verbatim about all these other stories, and they all stem to 3 books. And I'm sure you're very familiar with these 3 books. One book is by Lauren Stratford called Michelle Remembers. Another one is by Mike Warnke. And the third one is John Todd. But in particular, Lauren Stratford's Michelle Remembers, all of those allegations of any kind of SRA that went back to the early 90s and late 80s stem from that book. So you can pretty much read her testimony in that book, and that is exactly what all these other people claim. So that's why everybody has the same story. Michelle Remembers was debunked. It was debunked by a Christian magazine.
Do you really think everybody's read that book, though? I've never read that book. I've researched a ton of SRA books. I've never read that book.
You haven't read that book? That would be like 101 for you.
I've got a stack of books with bookmarks halfway through. So there's a lot I haven't read, and there's other things I have read. So, but isn't it? That's like super hard to get, right? It's out of print. And
the book itself, probably, yeah. But I'm just amazed you've never heard of Lauren Stratford.
Oh, I know. I'm familiar with her. Okay. I know Michelle. You said now Michelle Remembers. Is that Lauren Stratford?
Mm-hmm.
No, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Well, she had a couple of different. She was a very sketchy character. She had a couple of names. She wrote another book under the name of, I don't know, something, but it was about. She claimed to have been a Holocaust survivor, and the woman has absolutely not a single truthful bone in her body, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I haven't read the book, so I can't. The thing is, there's so many testimonies. Right here in my town, and I don't know if you heard me talk about this, and I don't know if you want me to. I don't know if you think I'll be wasting my time, but there was a case about a mile down the road from here It was an SRA case. I've talked to the I've talked to some counselors. I haven't talked to the counselor, but I mean, it's the same thing. These kids made testimonies, and I wasn't there in the rooms when they were being, when people were talking to them, but I believe these counselors were professional. I've heard enough to know that they didn't ask leading questions, and they gave these testimonies of the classic satanic ritual abuse testimony. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on it. I believe these accounts, and I believe these people. I don't believe them all. Mm-hmm. I don't believe them all. But for me, when I'm talking to somebody and they start, I don't ask leading questions, and I always tell them, don't go to the internet. I'm always careful about telling them where to research at, because you don't want to implant something that's not there. And, I hear the same thing. These kids where this abuse happened down the road, they told the same story. I don't believe that these kids had the ability, 20 kids, I mean, in this case, we're talking about 20 Ella Drapers all coaching their kids to tell the same story, and to, and they did.
All right, so when you said 20 other parents, you're talking about that particular case? I'm
talking about a case that happened
that was close to your hometown?
Yes, yeah. Okay. And the church that it happened at is about a mile away from my home. So okay. It happened in 1994.
Okay. And so just again, I'm going to be sidetracking us back to this particular case. But so besides the verbal testimony of these two children, what hard evidence convinces you to invest so much of your time, energy, and financial resources into perpetuating this case, even though it's been settled and it's been by a court of law in the United Kingdom? They've already done the research, and it's a closed case, but you believe it's true. You believe that there's you believe that not a good investigation has been done. What other evidence has convinced you of this?
Well, I think there's a lot of evidence of a cover-up.
Okay, so let's get into it. What evidence?
I mean, Michael Jackson had to drop his pants. Why didn't they look at these genitals of these teachers?
I don't know. Why are we talking about Michael Jackson?
Well, when Michael Jackson was accused of sexual abuse, they took a picture of his wiener. Why couldn't they go and see? I mean, that would have proved it right there. That would have disproved it or proven, hey, these kids are telling the truth. They gave pretty detailed. How in the world, besides the devil tattoos, how in the world do they know so-and-so's hairy? This person's this person's that.
Where did you get this from? Who said? When did they say this?
The children gave a lot of details. The children gave a lot of details about the genitalia of their teachers and the people that abuse them.
And where did you hear this? I've never come across that.
Yeah, it's in the videos of the testimonies. You can hear the children say it.
Which date was it? The first interview?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't have a clue. There's so many of them, and they're so mixed up. So, but they told what certain teachers' breasts look like, and I'm a little bit paraphrasing here, but they said, so and so was super hairy down there, but this is still verbal testimony that we're talking about. Yeah, but what I'm saying
beyond the verbal testimony, what convinces you that this actually took place?
Well, I think, why didn't they investigate that? I think there's a sign of a cover-up. I mean, like I said, when bringing up Michael Jackson again, when somebody accused him of sexual, whatever he was accused of, it was a normal procedure. They took him down, town, and they made him take his pants down and took pictures of him,
Okay.
And
but again, sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be rude, but we're talking about verbal testimony again. So I'm asking you, and maybe I should be more clear, what evidence beyond what is considered to be hearsay evidence, or beyond this verbal testimony of these children, what hard evidence has convinced you that this case is real?
I think a good place to look would be the medical reports. I mean,
Okay.
the doctor that examined them said that there were tears in there, and they could tell that it just wasn't, it just wasn't one time. This was ongoing sexual abuse.
Again, I don't know where you got that from. I know that they were examined twice by this one
Mhm.
doctor in different positions, so that when they look at the anus area, that depending upon the position, obviously it's different. But she actually recanted the testimony, and she said that those small tears were normal. So it wasn't a prolonged abuse, because first of all, prolonged abuse would be, there would be a lot. There would be a lot there, even though supposedly Vaseline was involved. But again, that is really, she recanted that. She said no, that she was
Um,
mistaken the first
I'm
time
not,
around.
yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not familiar with every single detail of what every person said, but again,
Well,
the
Tom, I mean, okay, I really have to say something here, because if you're not this familiar with the case and you have a banner in the background saying "believe that," or what does
Mhm.
it say? It says a Hampstead case. If you've invested all this money and time, and basically people like myself who identify as a witch and a pagan, as an occultist,
Mhm.
if you are generating this case and you are putting this forward, and people look at me and they go, "Oh, I wonder if that guy's a Satanist, or I wonder if he's one of those people who goes around molesting children and doing all these horrible things and sacrificing animals and drinking their blood," it reflects really bad on us. And if I hear like a Christian who's arrested for child molestation, I don't go, "Oh, it must have been a Christian ritual abuse case." I don't say that. I say this person who committed this crime should be investigated, and if they're guilty, they should go to jail. So I guess my other question for you is, what is the difference between satanic abuse and just somebody who abuses a child, in your opinion, based upon this
I
Hampstead
mean,
case?
we could talk about Catholics, we could talk about Protestants, we could talk about Jehovah's Witness and Mormons. There's sexual abuse across the board.
Well, I'm
I
just
mean,
well, okay. So if you say it's satanic ritual
mhm.
abuse, I mean, to me, in my mind, that immediately, I immediately assume that what you're talking about is like an actual satanic ritual. And there is no, to the best of my knowledge, there is no satanic ritual that involves, anything with a child, or even an
um,
animal for that matter.
and I don't think we're going to be able to agree on that. Again, I can only go by my experience. I've talked to tons and tons of people who've come to me, who confided in me, and shared their heart with me about, abuse that's taken place in the setting of a satanic ritual. I've also talked to people who've been abused in the Catholic Church. I've also talked to people who have been abused in a Protestant church.
Mhm.
So I think, and the thing is, I mean, we could talk about, like, just pick somebody out like a Jehovah's Witness. They have an epidemic of abuse in their church, okay? And you can pick on. I'm a Protestant. I'm a Christian. You can pick on me. Um, I guess this is what I would say. And you could argue about this. When I think of somebody about like Jehovah's Witness, that cult is just kind of like so controlling that when somebody's abused in that church, and I'm probably going way off where you don't want me to go, but what I'm saying is, it doesn't get reported, and
Oh,
the because of the control, because of the cult like setting, there's something more dangerous there. Satanic ritual abuse is a concern to me for different reasons. I mean, I think this goes back to Ezekiel chapter 8 in the Bible. I think this is something that's been going on. It goes on generation after generation. You identify as an occultist. I'm not accusing you of anything like this. I don't have a problem calling out the Catholics or the Protestants or anybody. I mean, I can show you articles of a year and a half ago where 12 mayors in the United States were busted for pedophilia, for raping children. So, I mean, we could talk about mayors, we could talk about Satanists, we could talk about what I believe are generational Satanists, occultists. You know, I could show you Left Hand Path. I could show you lots of stories about Left Hand Path, self-styled Satanists that are killing people. I mean, it's going on. And I don't know, I don't know what your denomination is. I would be more concerned about that if I were you than, I mean, if that's how you identify. I don't want to, you know, but I mean, these things are going on.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm a Wiccan, so I'm a witch and also an occultist.
Okay.
And I've been studying it for quite a while. And there's a lot of various people from each one of those groups that you mentioned that I know. And there's never ever been a convicted case where there's been a satanic cult involved.
I don't know. I guess I you know, and I think we've had this debate before, and we couldn't come to an agreement on it. I mean, there's several stories in the last several years. I mean, there's stories from 2018 where people have claimed to be involved in Satanism who committed murders. It happened in January. It happened.
Yeah, but those are one-off people who, you know, have some weird idea in their mind about whatever it is that they believe. Again,
well,
criminals,
I would say the same thing about
people who do something illegal just because they identify as, let's say, a Christian or a Satanist or a Hare Krishna or whatever, doesn't make what they did a ritual. It doesn't make it a ritual. It makes them psycho. And what they did was they did that in the name of whatever it is that they believe. I'm talking like what you're actually saying. I'm talking about like people like me, actual ritualists, people who actually, this is the way that we are, and that somehow we're involved in this, or there's some kind of a satanic cult running around doing these things. And there's never ever been any case of an actual satanic cult. Like the Church of Satan has never been involved in any of this. The Satanic Temple has never been involved in this. And we could even talk about Left Hand Path places. They've never been accused of things like this.
Well, maybe not, but these guys are reading your books.
Okay, they're not okay. So they're reading our books. So what?
Well, I don't know how they identify. I mean, one way we identify them is by the books they're reading, by who they're following.
So are you saying that everybody who commits murder, who's read a Bible, commits murder in the name of Jesus?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, then why is that different for you and not for me?
No, and I knew that question was coming. Obviously, I would say that person is not a Christian. Okay, but from my perspective, right. And I mean, there's different denominations of Christianity, and there's different denominations of Satanism. I mean, there's your atheistic. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to school you on the Left Hand Path and what's out there and Luciferian or whatever. You know more than I do. But you know, I mean, we can look at the case in South Carolina. I can't remember the guy's name, but maybe you know the guy that had tattoos all over his face. I would say, you know, that there was a couple people, you know, there was a few people involved, and you know that he wasn't alone. And we could talk about the case in Missouri. It was a boyfriend and girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I don't know which one. It was in Florida, a person with tattoos all over their face.
I think it was South Carolina, actually.
Or South Carolina?
Yeah.
So
you can. I mean, the video's out there. They give a tour of this guy's house. I think the guy committed suicide in prison, but I mean, he made the claim he was a Satanist.
Yeah. So, just because somebody is a Christian and they commit a crime, it doesn't mean that all Christians commit crimes. And it also doesn't mean that they did that in the name of Jesus. It means that they had they have a problem. They have some kind of a psychological problem or something. I mean, we don't just go around killing people for no reason. Anybody, you know, the people who do that are psychopaths. They're antisocial. or they're criminals who, killed somebody in the act of a crime. Those are crimes, and those are illegal, and people who commit crimes need to be caught and brought to justice. So I'm just curious. So and I'm trying to understand the way that you reason this. So in your mind, if somebody has, for example, a copy of the Satanic Bible on their shelf and they commit a crime, they did that in the name of Satan? Is that your reasoning?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, because
Okay.
I mean, anybody that follows the Satanic Bible doesn't even believe in Satan. So I mean, I wouldn't say that at all.
Okay. So what if they had like a whole library of Aleister Crowley books? Do you believe that they would be, and they committed a crime, that they did that in the name of the occult?
I believe it could have an influence on them.
You believe it can have an influence on them?
Sure,
Okay.
why not?
Okay. So what makes you think that?
I mean, I think we can look at. There's a lot of things we could look at in the writings of Crowley, who that suggest these things. So I mean, they go beyond suggesting. They encourage human sacrifice. If we look at the writings of Crowley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very familiar with Crowley, and I probably know what you're talking about. But what are you talking about? If you can remember it.
I'm drawing a blank right now, so you could probably help me out.
So you're talking about of the bloody sacrifice.
Sure.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's more than that, but yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Well, Crowley was a very prolific writer. He was kind of like a troll back in his time, and he loved, scaring the gullible and all this stuff. He was never arrested and thrown into jail for anything. But when he was talking about sacrificing a small boy, he was talking about himself. He was talking about how we sacrifice ourselves for what it is that we do. And in that particular passage, it's one of those things that bothers a lot of occultists, because this guy wrote like 100 books, and there's like one passage or one paragraph in one book that everybody picks out and takes out of context and throws out there like, look, see, occultists believe in sacrifice. And just because Crowley wrote that, it doesn't mean anything. It's just the way that Crowley wrote. And there's a lot of metaphor in the occult. So again, it's like you're coming down to, because they have these books and they commit this crime, that means that they are, whatever they do is in the name of that particular book. However, if a Christian has a Holy Bible on their shelf and they commit a crime, they're not a real Christian, because of why? Why wouldn't that matter? Why wouldn't that? Did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear the end of that. If a Christian commits a crime and they have a Holy Bible on their shelf, and then you broke up on me for a second.
Okay, so am I better now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so if a Christian has a Bible on their shelf and they commit a crime, does that mean that they did that crime in the name of Jesus?
It's
the same question I asked you earlier.
No. I mean, I would say they could give any excuse that they want. I mean, there's a lot of people that claim that they do things in the name of Jesus. I wouldn't claim them. I don't think that they're following the truth of the Bible if they do. Okay. I mean, I could just say real quick, thou shalt not kill, but I mean, there's other things. I mean, there's Christians that believe it's okay to kill babies. I don't believe that. Okay. I think that goes against God's word. So, I mean, I'm not here's the thing. I'm a Christian, and the only thing I can tell you is my experience. Okay. My experience is my life was changed. God changed it. Okay. My experience is, when I meet occultists, when I meet people who have been involved in all kinds of different kinds of occult stuff, they come to me for help. They come to me because something's following them. They come to me because, you know, they open a door somewhere that they didn't want. Okay. And we see this a lot. So my experience is when we apply the authority of Christ, their life changes and it gets better. Okay. So, I mean, obviously I'm going to be opposed to anybody who's doing magic, who's conjuring, depending on your denomination, something. Okay.
Okay.
Right. I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to put words in your mouth because I don't know exactly what it is you believe. Okay. But regardless of what you believe, this is what I would say about you, Ken. Even though you think maybe you're benevolent, I would say if you're doing rituals or whatever, I would say you don't know what you're messing with. I would say that it's a demonic presence. Okay. That's from my worldview. I'm not trying to insult you or put you down. I'm just, that's what I'm saying. So obviously these things are going, you know, I'm going to have a bent towards, and I'm going to have an eye out for things like this, but I'm not just picking on, you know, Satanists. I pick on Jehovah's Witness. I pick on Mormons. I pick on Catholics. You know, I believe in God's word and I try to live my life the best that I can, you know, following it. I'm by no means perfect. I make mistakes and I try to correct them. I'm better now than I was 5 years ago. And I think in 5 years, I'll be better then, you know. I would, I believe in, what am I trying to say? I don't know what you subscribe to. I'm trying to be careful, but
you don't have to be careful. Don't feel like you have to tiptoe around.
I don't want to put words in your mouth because, but I believe indulgence is the enemy of, you know, of happiness, of pleasure.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. It's really interesting how a lot of people have a very different understanding of what occultists and Satanists and pagans and witches believe and practice. I mean, we're not all running around, you know, doing rituals all the time. A lot of our life is just very boring and mundane, and we celebrate the Sabbats and the Esbats, which are different times of the year around the full moon. And it's basically just a celebration of life. It's a celebration of what nature is. And occultists look into a more deeper aspect of what is behind the universe. Like there's actually a lot of Christian occultists who what they want to do is they want to understand God, and that's what they do. I'm paraphrasing this, but a lot of occultists, we just look into stuff that other people don't look into, you know, and we're not there's nothing, we don't summon spirits, demons don't come, darkness comes, we don't feel uncomfortable, there's no fear, there's no anger, there's none of these things that people like yourself assume happens in, you know, in a ritual working or anything. What it is usually it's just we find out, we look into what's going on in the world and try to understand things, and it doesn't have anything to do with demonic presence or evil spirits or any of these things. This is all just, it's kind of like a snowball. It started back in, like, I don't know when it started, probably maybe happened way back in the 18th century or 19th century. And it's just like this little tiny snowball of, you know, oh, these people who are not Christian are practicing this way. And it just kind of like grew and grew and grew. And now it's like we're running around killing children and drinking blood and sacrificing animals. And I mean, it's gotten out of control. It's unbelievable how people like yourself believe this stuff. And, you know, that's one of my goals with the channel that I have, is to debunk this, because it's not true. It's all bullshit. Like, if you ever want to come to a ritual, I don't think you ever would, but if you ever did come to a ritual, like if in your local town, like if there's a group of witches or pagans or even Satanists or Luciferians or occultists, and I'm sure that if you asked them nicely and were respectful and said, hey, could I sit in on your service and just watch it, you would see exactly what happens. Right. And you would find out, you'd probably be bored, because they'd be saying a lot of words and doing a lot of things, moving around, and you would find it quite boring, because there would be no dark presence, no demonic evil force would pop up, nothing would happen.
I was actually at a ritual recently, involuntarily.
Okay.
And my experience was actually opposite of what you're saying. So
Okay.
I was actually at an abortion clinic, and 3 witches who were what we call escorts or death escorts were in the parking lot doing a ritual, casting some kind of spell. I don't know. And again, I don't know their denomination, but instantly I felt the power. I felt the presence. And it was the same presence that I feel when I'm doing a deliverance. It's the same presence I feel in other experiences that I've had. So, and again, I can almost guarantee that these people doing this ritual, casting this spell, they were probably Wiccan. Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking about that abortion clinic that's in your local town, right? Or outside of your town or whatever. So you began filming right after what you said that they were doing this ritual, right? Or did you actually film what you believe to have been a ritual?
Yeah, right after they started, right.
Yeah, right after. So why didn't you start filming when they were doing the ritual so you could actually catch it on camera?
I did. It's on camera. It's on my YouTube show.
That's not a ritual. They were just standing there.
Well, they were coming in agreement.
You're talking about those people in the yellow vests?
Yes.
Okay. Who were standing in the driveway of the clinic.
Right.
Right. That was not a ritual. Those were 3 people in yellow vests who were sitting there monitoring the situation because people bomb abortion clinics and shoot people at abortion clinics. It's happened in the past. So those people are out there to sort of look out and protect when people are coming in to get checkups or to get OBGYNs or to get birth control. Not all abortion clinics do abortions all the time. So that's what those 3 people were doing. If you think that is a Wiccan ritual, you can just do a simple Google search on it. You can even watch on YouTube what a Wiccan ritual is.
We're coming in agreement. They sat down on the ground. They drew a circle on the ground. They were doing something off in the distance, and then
was this something that you filmed?
I did not get that part. Okay. But I filmed afterwards, and you can see them holding their hands out, saying something. I was too far away, and then they began to sprinkle, something on the ground all around our area. So again, I don't know. I'm not studied up on every single. I'm going to assume. I think it's safe to assume that they're Wiccans. I don't know. Okay, it could be something different, but I think that would be a safe thing to say. 3 people were coming in agreement to do something spiritual. So whether you want to call it a ritual,
was the yellow vest part of the ritual, or was that just like?
No, that's just that's their normal attire.
Okay. Did they have any kind of writing on the back, like staff or security?
Yeah, you would have to go look at the video. I don't recall what it was written on there, but again,
so those were bright yellow fluorescent vests they were wearing. Is that correct? So what I'm trying to get at is those people were not Wiccans. They were staff who wear bright yellow fluorescent vests so that high visibility, and they were standing in certain directions to look out and protect people coming into that abortion clinic. That was not a ritual.
I don't know if they were Wiccans. I don't know what their denomination was, but they proudly proclaim that they are pro-abort witches. So, you can take it up with them. I'm not here to defend them or say they are or they're not. They've went out of their way to communicate to us that they are.
Yeah, but you're accused. I mean, you're not really accusing them of being. Well, you are accusing them of being witches, but it's not like.
Well, they wear shirts.
That's wrong. There's nothing wrong with being.
I'm just going by their shirt.
Their fluorescent vests?
No. They have shirts made up that say "pro-abort witch."
They do. I'm gonna go back and look at that.
Well, they're not wearing them, but I mean,
they're not wearing them.
You can go to their website. You can go to their Facebook page. And these shirts are available. Again, they, a week later, they put stones with runes on them all over the area. I don't know if you saw that video.
Yeah, I saw those. Those were very badly drawn runes. I don't know if some kid created those or what with nail
Well,
polish
I thought the same thing, and I'm
because
sure
they
they'll
were
get.
sort of shiny.
I think they'll get better over time. I mean, they're just starting out. You got to give them a little break there.
So
So,
what do you think the purpose was of casting runes? And runes,
uh,
Norse runes are used for divination. That's what people use those for.
right. I think you would have to ask them. I don't know what their purpose was. I mean, they definitely had a purpose in doing it, wouldn't you say? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is what I'm going to assume, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I would have
so
to
there's a couple of things that could have happened. One is that somebody who may be close to you, who knows your involvement in all this, may have put those there, or it could have been somebody dropped those there, or they could have been placed there by the people who are pro-life witches or whatever, who you think works in this abortion clinic. And if they did do that and they were Norse runes and they're throwing them out on the ground, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, what would be the purpose of throwing out? It would be like somebody throwing out tarot cards onto a parking lot. I mean, it doesn't do anything. It's just,
I don't know. You would have to ask them. You would have to ask them. I'm not here to defend them or to explain them. I'm just here to let you know this is,
well, I'm just telling, right.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of explaining to you like what the purpose of it. It would be like me going into, it would be like me going into somebody's house and seeing a crucifix on the wall and assuming that that's part of a Christian ritual.
But
there's no
that's
actual
fine, Ken,
reason.
but I mean, can't you customize anything?
What do you mean customize?
Can't you do whatever you want? There's no rules. I mean, who knows what they did with those runes?
Well, what do you mean by no rules? I don't understand what you mean.
I mean, you can't customize a ritual, or you can't have a personal purpose for or write your own ritual or write your own spell.
Yeah, I mean you can.
So who knows?
But
who
there's
knows what they did? They may have written their own spell. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it might say it's crazy to you because you are experienced and a professional, but I mean, I think it's fair to say that those guys were probably the guys that did it, and I'm pretty sure they're about 75% serious with what they're doing, and they're about 25% trying to spook out the Christians that are there. But I mean, I don't know what the purpose of those were, and unless we were there at the ritual and we or whatever it was or however they did it, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I mean,
but you were there for the ritual. You said that, right?
Well, I was there the week before. I'm assuming that there may have been another ritual with the with the runes.
Okay. All right. I just realized that we're coming up on an hour. Do you want to continue this, or do you want to schedule?
I can go on for a little bit if there's because we kind of got off track. And
yeah, we did.
Sure that I answer anything that you. I'm trying to answer. The only thing I can tell you is I'm giving you my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to be able to satisfy any of your questions, but I'll do the best I can. I'm just going to be transparent and honest with you why I believe what I believe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we did get sidetracked on that, and that was actually kind of my fault because I took it in that direction. But yeah, we probably should get back to the Hampstead case. Now, the other thing that another very important question that I want to ask you is, what would it take for you to believe that this case is not true and it has been perpetuated by the parents, Ella Draper and Abraham Christie, that they told these kids to tell these things to the judge? I mean, what would bring you to the point to realize that this case is not factually, there's not enough evidence to support what they claim?
I think we missed that opportunity, and I haven't thought about that. I've actually thought about that in the reverse way. Maybe asking someone like yourself, what would it take? And obviously, I think I know you would want to see some kind of forensic evidence, something like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it would take. to obviously I'm very invested in it. I
Mhm.
I wouldn't step out like this and take a risk and put my name on the line if I did not really believe this. I didn't make this decision lightly. This had been in the works for over a year and a half. So it's not something that I did on a whim. You know, it's not something that I didn't think about. So you know, I made the decision to do it, and I don't regret it, and I stick by it, and I believe that the children were telling the truth, and I believe that there was a cover up, and I believe the judge dropped the ball and the police dropped the ball, and you know, I mean, we're not in agreement about this case, and I knew that was the, you know, I knew that before I came on here, which is not a problem. I mean, I enjoy talking to you anyway because I get to just be transparent. You know,
Mhm.
the only thing I can say is I have talked to so many people, and I've just seen them pour out their heart to me, okay, and give testimony. And I don't believe every single thing that I hear. And there's people out there giving testimony that I don't necessarily believe, and I
So,
won't endorse them.
so what makes you think that the judge dropped the ball?
Oh man, that's a long story. She's got a long judgment. You know, I just I think if you read almost the opening statement, and I just feel like when I could take that and make a meme out of it and use her own words against you. And I don't have it right here in front of me. I might be able to bring it up here somewhere. Let me see. I think it's ridiculous. I think her statement that says, I am able to state with complete conviction that none of the allegations are true. And then she goes on to say the claims are baseless.
Hmm.
I just think when somebody says that, and these kids have made so many things that they could have went and investigated. They could have investigated the tattoos. They could have investigated, you know, done some forensic, you know, investigation. They should have at least went to the school and put up yellow tape, but instead they completely refurbished the school, and you know, all of the forensic evidence has got to be gone.
Okay, so you think that she dropped the ball by saying that the case has no merit?
I think she dropped the ball on the whole thing. I think her ruling was wrong, and I think that she was, you know, I mean, they gave tons of testimony that it was true, and then they gave a recant. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, do you think? And again, I know you don't want to veer off, but I mean, what's your thoughts on the West Memphis Three? I think this is in reverse.
Well, yeah, the West Memphis Three is a whole nother case, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree, but that was a
we
false
should stay
confession,
on
right?
track with this one.
But that was a false confession, right? Would you agree?
They the West Memphis Three, they took a plea. So they were railroaded into this,
Okay.
and they went to jail. They served their time. They reached an Alford plea. They got released. So in my opinion, they served their time. Whether or not they were guilty, they still served their time in jail. So that's my opinion on that. So
Mm-hmm.
now back to the Hampstead case. So you're saying that this judge, who's a professional judge, who's been sitting in court, who has heard probably thousands of hours of testimony of various people, you know, throughout their judge career, and this is their professional job. This is what they do: is they hear people's cases, they make judgments. And this particular judge, I don't know exactly her record, but I'm assuming she's been doing it for quite a while. She's very qualified for it. However, you, who's been studying the case a little bit on the internet, believes that she dropped the ball on it. So I'm just curious, what makes you think that she dropped the ball? And you're saying she dropped the ball because she believed that the case had no merit?
Um, I believe that she dropped the ball because she believed the smallest part of the testimony, which was the recant, and never done any investigation into all of the claims of the children. Why would you
They
not? Why would you not just like, okay, let's go down this road and see if at least see if there's anything there,
they
and
did
if
not.
there's not, we'll come back. but let's go to the school and check this out. Let's get a warrant. Let's go to the teacher's house and
They
see
did
if
that.
things
They
are
did
there.
that. They did that. They went around. The police went around with the two children, P and Q, in the car, and they went around. They asked them to point it out. They also went into the church that the kids say that these plastic willies were. They went into this church unannounced, and they searched the church, and there was nothing found. So she did. There was evidence. There was an investigation done, or excuse me, lack of evidence. There was an investigation that was done. There were 16 people that were interviewed. 100 people were implicated. Around 100 people were implicated, but 16 people they felt were people that they needed to talk to. The secret, like there was supposedly like a wall that could be moved away, and in the back there was where these satanic, you know, crime, satanic events happen, or whatever they claimed that they were. This was from the movie The Mark of Zorro. And these kids, this is where they got the idea for this, from watching The Mark of Zorro when they were on vacation in Morocco, where the parents then, however you want to call it, where these kids were coached on what to say and how to say it to the police for the interview.
Well, again, I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to come to an agreement, and I think obviously, it's easy to make me look stupid on this. I'm not
okay.
I mean, but here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with it. I came on here knowing, that this was your view. I came on here. I mean, I could have been studying up all day. I could have, I mean, the information is out there. You can look up the reports that have been done on how the ruling was faulty, how there was never any recant about what happened at the pool. And so, but according to the judge, everything was recanted. That's not true. They never recanted the abuse at the pool. Okay. So the very first statement in the ruling is false, because if you study the transcripts, if you watch the interviews, they never recanted what happened at the pool. So, I mean, there's errors in this judgment. I would say, this is what I tell everybody. Don't believe me. Look it up for yourself.
Okay.
So I have experience. I'm not an auto mechanic, so don't ask me to work on your car. But I have experience with survivors of satanic ritual abuse, and I help them often. I help people with spiritual problems often. I wouldn't consider myself a pro, but people come to me when they can't get help at a counselor. They can't, when the pastor turns them down, or the pastor is afraid of what's going on, I get them. Okay.
Yeah. So just to let you know, because
Mhm.
I know you're getting defensive. So whatever my personal opinion of you is my personal opinion of you, obviously you can't change that, but I'm here, I'm telling you what I believe. I'm telling you what I've researched, and I mean, I've researched this case. I've been working on a video for this case, but I got distracted by other things. So I want to know what makes you tick on this particular case? What makes you feel so passionate about this? Why you believe this? And that's why I'm asking you these
Well,
questions.
I mean,
I'm
the
not
only thing I
trying to
can
make
say,
you look stupid or anything like that. So please, if you feel like I'm being disrespectful to you, or saying that you're stupid or anything like that, please call me on it, because that's not my intention. I just want to know why Thomas Dunn believes what he believes about this particular case.
No, Ken, those weren't your words. Those were my words.
Okay.
And I don't say that. I don't, that's probably the wrong thing to call myself. I don't, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that agree, but what I'm saying is, I didn't come to this interview. Like I said, I could have brought out a lot more stuff. Okay. But I didn't. And, I don't know. It's late. It's late in Ohio. I can't think. But the only thing I can say, you asked me what makes me tick. What makes me tick?
About
I
this
went
particular
into
case.
this to make films. I went into this honestly to scare people because I thought this was frightening stuff. Hollywood makes millions of dollars off of these very, very things that we're talking about, right? So they make all kinds of films about satanic cults and all this crazy stuff and spiritual things and people possessed and all that stuff. I went into it to make a film. And the deeper I began to research and the more I began to study, it got real for me. And I talked to the people that experienced this stuff, and I believe that they were telling the truth. When I saw the Hampstead interviews, I believe those kids were telling the truth because they could not have known those things unless they experienced them. I believe that when you watch their body language, when you listen to their words, I think it's easy to discern that they're telling the truth. That's my experience. That's not your experience. You're asking me why? I'm telling you why. I've heard so many people say the exact same thing.
Okay. Hold. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the interviews. There were 3 interviews. The P and the Q. So the young boy and the young girl were interviewed by the police, and there were 3 interviews. There was 1, 2, and then 3rd, where they recanted their stories. So you're saying that you believe their body language and their truth for all 3 of those, or 1, or 2, or 3? Or, I mean,
even in the
do you believe
recant,
all of it or just part of it?
Yeah, I think especially the recant is the most important because you can tell that the boy did not want to. He did not want to recant. He did not want to say that, and every time he was asked several different times, and each time he got closer to recanting, but he said, "Yeah, not that many," until he finally said it didn't happen. So I think I would encourage people watch the recant video. Make your own decision. I'm not really here to convince you or to convince skeptics. It doesn't matter to me if you believe in this or not.
But Tom, and I want to be really sincere with you right now. It's actually very important because Ricky Dearman is receiving death threats. The man has to change his name. He has to hide because he's receiving so many death threats. Everybody who watches your videos who believes that this stuff happens, some of them act on it. Okay? So it's not like you're just, oh, I got this idea about this happening, and so I'll put it out there. People are going to believe you, and they're going to act upon that, and they are acting upon that. Ricky Dearman is receiving death threats. So unless you are 100% believing that what happened did not happen the way it happened, you are perpetuating a lie. And you need to understand that. It's very, very important. And I don't think you're making a lot of money off of the banners and the little cards that you have and the website and all this. If you are, then that's even worse, because now what you have in your pocket is blood money. And I want you to understand that. And I want you to really, really think about that.
Well, I appreciate that, Ken, and I would not have stepped out and done this had I not thought it was the right thing to do. So, I mean, I don't regret it. I mean, obviously, I received all kinds of threats myself on behalf of somebody. I'm not going to say it's on behalf of Ricky Dearman, but it's on behalf of the people that are defending him. So, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think Ricky Dearman is a guilty man, and he's a he's a perp, and he needs to be dealt with. Obviously, I feel this way, and I think his, the evidence against him is his ridiculous interview with the BBC. But again, that's probably something that you and I don't agree on.
Well, you keep coming to this point of whether or not we agree on something. Truth is the truth. Truth is the truth. That's just the way it is. You can't really avoid that. There's objective truth, and then there's subjective truth. We're talking about an objective truth. The objective truth is, did this happen or did it not? It's a binary question. There is no middle ground. It's either it happened or it didn't happen. If it happened and this judge dropped the ball and all this evidence, which there is no evidence except for the kids who recanted their stories, if this went through and there was some mistake or something, then that's the important issue that you should be bringing up in this. Other than that, the case has been interviewed, the children have been interviewed, and the investigation has been done. It was thorough. The parent, Ella Draper, left the country. She ran away. She left her children, who she should be protecting. She left them in the care of, well, now they're with their parents, but with Ricky Dearman, but before they were with Child Protective Services. So there's no gray area. It's a binary thing. And if this case has been investigated and it has been proven that the events did not happen the way that they happened, and you are perpetuating this campaign, you know, what makes you feel so confident about this? And I'm sorry I keep coming back to the same question.
Yeah,
but
well, I don't think I'm going
don't
to be able
feel
to
like
give you. I don't think I'm going to be able to give you an answer that's going to satisfy you.
again,
We haven't heard anything. Here's the
you're
thing.
not really talking to me right now. You are talking to my chat.
Well,
you were telling my chat, convincing
but you're the one asking the questions. I
Right.
mean, I'm not here to convince your chat. They're probably not going to believe me. They're probably, the only thing I would say, and this is what I tell everybody, and even people on my own channel, don't believe me, do your own research, come to your own conclusions.
But you're the one who's brought up this campaign. I mean, you're the one that's kind of picking up this banner and charging forward and expecting people to follow you. So I'm just wondering if you feel confident.
People can follow me or they can't. I don't want anybody to follow me. I'm asking people, do you feel the same way that I do? I'm not the only one. There are many people out there that feel this way. There are many people out there that believe that JFK was not shot by Oswald. Okay. There's many people out there that believe, a lot of stuff, that the West Memphis Three are innocent or whatever. I'm not here to argue that. Okay. We could talk about so many things. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe it. I'm not trying to start a cult. I do get a little charismatic sometimes, but on anything, because I have no fear. And here's the thing. I've had so many things said about me and so many people, and I would even encourage people, even as foolish as you've made me look in this. And again, you're not, those aren't your words. And I don't say that out of, I say that out of confidence, not out of weakness, because this is how I roll. Okay. I go by my experience. Okay. I feel like my experience is valid. I mean, we could have this same conversation, Ken, about God and who Jesus was. We could have the same conversation, and you could look at me and you could say, Tom, you're perpetuating a lie. Jesus wasn't who he said he was. You're wrong, And I realize that you believe there's more at stake with Ricky Dearman. I think Ricky Dearman's guilty. I want to see justice in this case. I don't think it was done, and that's why. And this is not the only case. It's bigger than this case. I know so many cases. I know so many people, but this case, satanic ritual abuse, the subject has been dead since Satanic Panic. Okay.
I'm sorry I keep asking the same question, but what, because you say with such confidence about believing in this case, and if I ask you, like, what makes you believe that this case is valid, and you just keep coming back to this emotional plea where you're saying, well, I believe them. I just believe them. And that's what you keep coming back to. And to me, that's not a good position to put somebody else's life on the line over. I mean, when we're talking about personal beliefs, like you have a personal belief in God, that's fine. I could poo-poo you all day. It doesn't matter, because it's a personal belief. It really doesn't have any effect upon anyone else. That's your personal belief. There's nothing wrong with the personal belief. I have a personal belief. Everybody has a personal belief. Well, maybe some people don't have a personal belief. But when we have a personal belief, nobody suffers consequences. However, if you perpetuate that a case that was interviewed and researched and and come to the conclusion by a judge in the UK that there was no validity to any of these claims, and yet you just believe it. And so you are perpetuating this, knowing, as I mentioned earlier, that there is someone's life who's being harmed because of this, and you keep perpetuating it. I'm just wondering, you've got to be really confident, because according to your Bible, I mean, isn't lying one of the 10 commandments? Isn't it like Exodus 20:16?
Lying is one of the 10 commandments. I'm glad
Yeah.
you know.
So what is Exodus 20:16?
You tell me. It's you're right in that area. I mean,
you probably know the Bible better than I do.
I don't have it memorized the way that you do.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I know the 10 commandments are right there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about the one that talks about lying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, I don't believe every judgment that's ever been made in a court of law has been a right judgment. You know, I mean, for example, when my Lord was crucified, that was a false trial. That was not a right judgment. That was, I mean, Jesus was railroaded. And maybe you agree and you trust every judge that's ever been a judge. I don't, and I think that there's good reason not to trust this one. So, I mean, I would just say, go look at the evidence for yourself and make a decision. I mean, do you believe every judge that's ever been a judge has been a honest judge, has been a good judge? Every judge, there's never been a wrong judgment?
No, I think more
faith than I do.
Probably. I probably do. But what I'm talking about is that the judges that we have nowadays, I think that the judges go by what is presented to them. You could, for example, have somebody who's absolutely 100% guilty and another person who's the victim, but the victim has absolutely no evidence. They have nothing. And the person who's guilty of it, there's not enough evidence to convict them. So the judge, in their heart of hearts, may look at this person and go, they're fucking guilty. I know they're guilty. But because they're a judge and they can only go by the evidence, the objective truth of the evidence presented to them, if there's not enough evidence to convict that person, they're treated as innocent, even if the judge in their heart feels that person is guilty. So whatever evidence you present to a judge is how the case is going to turn out. So in this particular case, and again, we're talking about the Hampstead case, there was the confessions of the children, or the testimony of the children, and then it was recanted. And that was pretty much all the evidence that was present. And so the judge determined that the case was, there was nothing to prosecute, or there was nobody to prosecute. And so there was nothing there. And that's how the case is played out. But you believe that there was some kind of a travesty of justice, or something wasn't, somehow the judge dropped the ball. And I keep asking you what happened.
I'm not alone in thinking this. I mean, here's the thing. Again, going back to the West Memphis 3, many people disagreed with that judgment. They thought it was a wrong judgment. And what happened? They began a campaign. What was the end result of that campaign? One guy on death row, 2 people in prison for life were set free because of the beliefs of the people that started the campaign. I would say, and not everybody agreed with that they were innocent. People thought they were guilty. Obviously, I believe this is a lot like the West Memphis 3 case, but in reverse, where in the West Memphis 3 there was a false confession. Here, it was a false recant.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe many people in your chat room would think the West Memphis 3 are innocent, and that I don't know, but I'm going to assume, and that there was a false confession there. I'm saying I believe this to be that in reverse. And here, I mean, we had, if that's true and that was a false confession, you know, Damien Echols almost lost his life. He was on death row, and these guys lost years in prison. That's not justice. That's not justice if that was a false confession. And I don't think this is justice. I think this is a false recant. I think it's easy for an adult to outsmart a child. I think that the testimonies of the children are believable. And I think and obviously I have a bent to it because I've heard these testimonies over and over and over again. A mechanic can go out, and you can laugh about this, they can listen to my car and they can know, I know what's wrong with that. Okay. Because they've done it over and over and over again. Okay. And they can fix your car. I'm saying I have experience in this. I'm not the best. I have talked to many, many people that had no way of knowing each other. And I realize that you think that the foundation for this is Michelle remembers or whatever, but I think it's ridiculous to think that everybody's read those stories. I've talked to so many people that have not read a book, that, you know, that don't know these things, that have gave, you know, a very sincere testimony of experiencing the same things. These kids here in my town experience the same things that were experienced in Hampstead, 20 years apart, thousands of miles apart, gave very similar stories. And I don't, you know, I think there's something more to that. That's my experience. And, you know, I know you don't agree with it. I know you don't like it. Only thing, I mean, you're asking me why I feel that way. That's why I do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I like it or not. I'm just, so what do you hope to accomplish with this campaign? What is your end goal?
To bring awareness about satanic ritual abuse. That's the number one thing. To pray about this, to pray for justice, to pray, you know, that anybody anybody who's involved in any kind of you know, satanic sacrifice or anything like that is discovered, and light is shining in a dark place. And we, you know, I mean, ultimately everything that we do is centered on the gospel, sharing our belief, our hope that we have, you know, in Christ. So, I mean, I have to say that that's foundational, but obviously this is something that I think is an epidemic. I think that takes place a lot of, you know, I think it takes place a lot more, you know, than what people believe. I know you don't believe it takes place at all, but I think that, you know, that we need to bring awareness to this. I believe that, you know, it's my job to fight evil, and I think this is evil.
Okay. But I actually kind of meant like, what is your goal with the Hampstead,
with the Hampstead case?
What do you want to happen?
I would love to see some kind of, you know, I would love to see something happen. I don't know if I have the power to make that happen. So, you know, some kind of an investigation. It could be way past time, you know, when we're talking about forensics and things like that. I don't know. I feel like the kids are in harm's way now because they're with a father. You know, I mean, I don't have the power to do a lot of things, but we can raise awareness about this, and we can say, hey, you know, this happened. You know, Jimmy Savile. You know, so many people have come forward and saying this guy abused me in a satanic setting. Okay.
But Jimmy Savile doesn't have anything to do with the Hampstead case, correct?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, nothing that I personally know of. Okay. But I mean, he had, you know, he had some kind of power to get away with what he was doing for all those years. So anyway, and what I'm saying is, the reason, what I mean by saying that is, it makes sense why, you know, there was such a sophisticated cover up in Hampstead. So, and just like there was, you know, Jimmy Savile had cover also. So
yeah. So I'm sorry. So again, your goal for the Hampstead campaign is to expose
what we're doing
all
is bigger.
This evil.
Yeah, what we're doing is bigger than the Hampstead campaign, but we're asking for justice. We're asking for the kids to be heard and believed by the courts, and they weren't.
But they've already been heard.
They weren't believed. They came out and they told a horrific story. And you know, I realize that you don't believe their initial testimony. I realize you believe that the recant was true. I don't believe that, and I don't think justice was done. I think these kids were abused, and I don't think it was right. And I think there were more kids that were abused, and I think that there's more stuff going on. And I mean,
so
these guys don't stop. They move. They go other places. They scatter.
let me turn the tables a little bit on you here.
You're going to turn the tables.
Yeah, really. So why do you think I believe this? Do you think that it's just because I want to believe it, or do you think that there's some kind of an objective truth that has led me to this conclusion?
Why you don't believe Hampstead is a real case?
Yes.
I don't know. I've dealt with a lot of left-hand path, anybody occult, anybody, you know, and in my experience, one of their main, this is my experience. I've talked to a lot of them. I've been attacked by a lot of them. I'm not talking about recently. I'm talking, you know, over time. Their number one talking point is generational Satanism is not real, and SRA is not real. It's a myth. So I don't know why. Maybe you could tell me why, because every person I run into, maybe it's because of the association. You know, I think when you say generational Satanism is real and Satanists, you know, that have been around, you know, family-wise, passing this down from generation to the next. I'm not pointing finger at you, but there's a denomination of Satanism that does horrific things. They do horrific things to kids and adults and everybody in between. And I think that does not shine a good light on your belief system as a whole. So, you know, I mean, I don't have a problem believing that there's priests and there's preachers that commit horrific crimes. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm sorry. I was specifically talking about the Hampstead case. Why do you think my position on the Hampstead case is that it was not real?
I mean, that's something that we would have to unravel. I would ask you questions about, you know, what is your profession in life? You know, I don't know. What do you do? I mean, why are some people bent to believe 9/11 was an inside job? I personally do. I don't trust the official government story, but I'm sure you probably do. You know, I don't know.
But I'm not. I'm talking about.
But I mean,
do you think that there's things
what I'm getting at is why do you believe it? Because you haven't had the experience that I've had. You are, you know, for you, the recant is the truth, and you're going to stick to that, and you're happy with the judgment. You trust judges and you trust police officers. I don't know. I can make a lot of speculation, but
yeah, I mean, it's just speculation. I was just curious why you think I believe that the case is not valid, and right. the reason why I don't believe it's valid is just because the only evidence they have is a testimony by the children, and it was shown that the parents were coaching these kids on what to say, and also later on the kids recanted, and the stepfather or boyfriend of Ella Draper, Abraham Christie, beat those kids, and they were fearful of him. They didn't like him, and they didn't want to go back to him. And I mean, it's just the whole thing. Just once you look at it, all the puzzle pieces fall into place, and it's a perfect picture of what happened. And so I'm just amazed because I've looked at this case and I've read the court document and had come to this conclusion. And that's the only evidence they had was a recanted statement. I mean, no court anywhere is going to reopen a case where somebody made a claim and then recanted it. No judge is going to do that unless new evidence, convincing evidence, is presented.
Well, and you know, and I'm sure you're right about that. I feel like I'm always in this debate of whether I'm talking to somebody who's pro-choice or who's, you know, I don't know. But obviously we're looking at things differently. I mean, I believe the testimony of the children. And I believe the recanting. I would encourage everybody to go look at the video of the recanting, read the transcripts of the recant. I think that's some of the strongest evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but yeah, so well, yeah, I don't know. I think we're kind of. I mean, I honestly didn't expect to like come into this and like one of us would be convinced of the other's position, and we're gonna walk away like, oh yeah, okay, I agree.
Hey,
So I knew we weren't going to agree, but
can I say a word before we close out? Or can I say one thing before we close out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm about to close out.
Thank you for approaching me and emailing me and showing me your face.
Okay.
Okay. I appreciate that. I have no problem answering hard questions. I can't answer them all. I can just tell you what I believe and why I believe it. Mm-hmm. And I assumed that you knew what you were talking about when you came on here. And again, I mean, I feel like I could have did my homework a little bit better and gave you a little bit more of a show maybe. But I appreciate, you just being straight up with me and looking at me. Anyway, I'm being accused of running away from a debate, and I knew what this was going to be. So, well, I'm not afraid, of talking to people that have different beliefs than me, and of talking to people that, that have a different side of this case than I do. So I just appreciate you like a man emailing me and asking me. I appreciate talking to you, man. I really do.
Okay, well, good. Well, hopefully, maybe we can talk again about some topic and maybe get into some of this generational Satanism that you're talking about, and maybe we can talk again about this. So I'll definitely keep the door open, and maybe we can touch base again some other time. I know that you're really embedded in this campaign, and I just honestly hope that when you put your head down at the pillow that you know the consequences of what you're doing. And I'm not talking about your personal consequences. I'm talking about the consequences for Ricky Dearman and other people who are going to be affected by this. And just, and also I'm not going to stop debunking you. I'm not going to stop making videos, because there's a lot of information that people like you are putting out there that is harmful, and it is having an effect on people, and it's not accurate. It's not accurate information.
I wouldn't expect you to stop debunking me. So
Okay.
I think if you believe it, you should do it.
Good.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, hey, thanks, Tom. It was exciting. I know that you and I kind of got into it a couple of times there, but I think we kept it relatively civil.
hey, again, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay, and chat room, thanks all. And Thomas, have a good night, and I will hopefully talk to you again sometime.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Good night.